I'm Arnav. I'm a YouTube strategist, and over the last 2-ish years, I've been working on a channel that is just about to hit 1 million subscribers. That means a lot to me. Um, Here's some proof. That's the channel, Dr. Justin Sung. I think we should hit 1 million subscribers probably sometime tomorrow or overnight when I'm sleeping. And I sort of just wanted to make this real raw, candid video sharing a little bit of my journey over the past 2 years. Because as I was thinking about it, sort of hitting this milestone with Justin, initially I thought I didn't really care, which is why I sort of put up the camera to record a video being like, we're going to hit 1 million subscribers, but nothing really, like the number doesn't really mean much. It doesn't feel anything. But as I sort of sat down and set this all up, a flood of memories of the last 2 years, the journey of the last 2 years just came up. And I don't know, maybe I'll title this video, I disappeared for 2 years and it completely changed my life. Because over the past 2 years, have completely changed my life. And I did in a way disappear, and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it if there's anyone out there that may be thinking of doing the same, thinking of, I don't know, going down a non-traditional path, thinking of sort of chasing their dreams. And often, as guys, often at the ages where, 2 years ago I was 18, at that age, you sort of feel like the world is against you. A lot of people, deal with, low self-esteem, not that I did at the time, but I'm sort of making this for my 18-year-old self, to let him know that shit, like, things are possible when you stick to them and when you're willing to weather the storm. Anyway, 2 years ago, my story really started outside of coming out of VCE. I did quite well. It's like the year 12, it's like your graduating certificate, and they give you like a rank and stuff. So I scored really well in that. But I decided that, hey man, like, I don't know, uni for me, it didn't really feel like the pathway for me. I still went to uni, but at the time it sort of didn't feel like something that was attracting me a lot. Generally, I think in the education system, as a brown person growing up, I always try-harded. Parents were very supportive and encouraging of me to try hard at school, and rightly so. I think education is super important. All the work I do now, around now, is also about education. But I probably just sort of felt this like anger at the time at the education system for the way it is, and the way that and the things they make you focus on and stuff like that. I sort of felt like there was more to learning, there was more to life, and there was more to the human experience than sitting in classrooms being taught a standard curriculum for things that we didn't really care about. And guess what? Like, after high school, we didn't really end up using. Whereas a lot of the skills and stuffs that I lacked as an 18-year-old that made me scared, made me anxious, made me afraid of the world, those skills were not really taught to me, like, growing up in the education system. Anyway, I realized that eventually I wanted to do something that was bigger than tertiary education. I wanted to sort of explore other things. So I decided, about when I was 18, I had some mentors. I was really fortunate to be guided by some really cool people. And I had this conversation with one of my mentors. It was 2 years ago. I had just graduated high school, and he goes to me. He was going to this communications workshop by this dude called Vin Zhang. This Asian dude. You've probably honestly seen him on YouTube, like, come up on an ad trying to teach you communication skills. And it was this dude, and all of my mentors in their circle was going to go attend the workshop for this dude. It was in Adelaide. And my mentor told me that it's a great experience, it's a great skill that I need to learn, and I should learn, and it will set me up for life, and I should do it. So I was like, cool, man, like, let's do it. Send me the link. And he sent me the link, and I was expecting it to either be like a free webinar or like, I don't know, like an online thing, couple $100. Anyway, I think like the workshop was like thousands of dollars, and it was like 2 days of intense training about communication skills. And I remember going home and like opening up the link that my mentor had sent me to go like attend this workshop. And by the way, I was going to pay for this workshop myself because I wasn't working for any company. Like, the mentor was just mentoring me out of a personal relationship. So obviously he's not going to pay for it, right? It's going to be me. And I remember like clicking on that link and seeing the price. At the time, I think it was like $3,997 or something like that. It was something along those lines. And it was funny because it was a big price tag. And I went to my parents and I was like, hey guys, can I go to this workshop? And mum was like, nah, like it's a bit too expensive. It's out of budget for us. And I was like, yep, fair enough. Like definitely, it was definitely expensive. And I didn't want to make a big ask of my parents. But, ever since like probably the ages of 12, every single birthday, every single event, anytime I received a gift, I'd just been saving money over time. And I think at the time, my bank like balance in my savings was just enough to be able to go to this workshop. I think I had like a few $100s left after it, right? So I'm like, cool, mum. I asked my parents for permission. I was like, hey, can I like empty my life savings? And as an 18-year-old, like the few $1,000s that I had in my bank were like a lot to me. I was like, man, I could like get so much Subway with this. And I asked my parents, I was like, hey, would it be okay for me to spend these and go to this workshop? And I'll be forever grateful for my parents for trusting in me and giving me autonomy, because they said yes. And that allowed me to go to this workshop. Funnily enough, when I eventually they said yes, I went to go buy. Whatever the price was, they added 10% GST because it wasn't included initially in the price. And I remember like being pissed off at that fact, because the few $100s that I had to spare after spending it were now gone. Anyway, I go to Adelaide. I'm 18, really scared, really like anxious, really nervous. This entire workshop, most people there are professionals, well into their careers, very well established, have businesses, have confidence, and have just seen a lot of life. And I was the youngest person at that workshop, and I was the youngest person to attend that workshop for Vin at the time. And I remember walking in that room. There's like this massive like corridor where everyone's just sort of networking before the workshop starts. I remember the day I walked in there feeling so nervous, and Vin, the dude, he looked at me, he recognized me, and he called me by my name, and he says, Arnav, so nice to meet you. Like, thank you for being able to make it. And he referred to me by my name. He gave me this handshake and this warmth. And that really, for me, changed something. It sort of gave me the confidence. And later on, I would find out that this is something Vin does for all of his workshops, where he will literally, ahead of the day before people rock up, he will memorize like names to faces before he's ever met them in person. And he actually makes you send like a selfie. He makes you send a selfie before you go to the workshops. So anyway, I did that workshop, and on that trip, I met Justin in Adelaide 2 years ago. That dude over there. And the reason I met Justin is because he was my mentor's co-founder at this company called iCanStudy. And at the time, my entire life, I've just always been obsessed with YouTube. Like, I think in 2013, my parents migrated to Australia. And the first thing I did when I got to Australia was like, basically upload a video being like, hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm now in Australia. So yeah. And that was in 2013. And I've just been making videos all throughout my high school, all throughout primary school and stuff, even in year 12, year 11. So YouTube had been my entire life. And Justin at the time had just started on YouTube. I think he was at like maybe 150K subs. And he didn't know what he was doing with YouTube either. He just had a lot of valuable content. Some of it went viral. He was at 150K. And it's funny because today he was telling me, I was asking him, I was like, hey, Justin, how do you feel? How do you feel now that you're going to hit 1 million subscribers? Like, does it mean anything to you? Because a lot of the times, like Justin, him as a dude, like he doesn't really care about milestones that much. And he said, yes, it actually does mean a little bit to him, because when he got to 100K subs, he remember looking and thinking to himself that I'm never in my entire life going to get to 1 million subs, because you can luck your way to 100K subs on YouTube, but you can't luck your way to 1 million. So it did mean something to him. So anyway, I met Justin on that trip, and I remember being in this like hotel room with Justin and Michael, and we just were just chatting, and I was just nerding out about YouTube, and he was obviously getting into YouTube, so he was nerding out about YouTube, and we just talked for like hours. And I actually took a Polaroid that day. Let me grab it. Look at this. This is a Polaroid of me, and that is Michael, and that over there in the back is Justin, a little bit over 2 years ago in Adelaide. And on the other side, it's a photo of me and Vin from that workshop from 2 years ago. And in that room, I basically got my first job, first proper job out of high school. I started working as a junior social media content assistant at iCanStudy. And it's very funny because I started my job while I was at schoolies in Gold Coast. That was when I had my first meeting. We were just all hammered after a night of going out. And I remember waking up the next day completely not in any position to be on a call. I remember we had a small meeting that day, and that's when it all started. I'm gonna sort of fast track the journey from there on. I remember at the start, I felt like, man, let's go. Like, what an amazing opportunity to work for Justin, to work in an ed tech, to learn business. Because I knew that eventually, I think, I was just always been attracted to the thought of being able to run a business, because it's basically creating value for the marketplace, and making impact, like through the vehicle of a business. Anyway, for the first few months, life was amazing. I remember I shortly went to India right after Gold Coast. So I was working remotely in India for Justin, but when I came back, that was like the first like proper, I'm back in Melbourne, I'm going to lock in, I'm going to start working. And uni was also starting at the time. The first thing I did was I went to Sydney with Justin for about a week. Crazy. It was awesome experience. Actually, there's like a vlog. If you search up Dana Life, it has like 20K views. And it's just Justin in his like professional suit. We were professioning a professional program, and I was just like Gary V manning this camera, which I had bought like a week before, and I did not know how to operate cameras, and I was just winging it, clueless, no skill set, I'm telling you. But the only reason I was able to go on that trip is because Justin was recording this professionals course, and the founders had decided that Justin's ability to deliver that course in the best way possible to make it engaging was really important. And because I had been trained in those communication skills with Vin, they saw value in the fact that I had those skills to be able to help bounce ideas and moderate and give feedback to Justin. So again, that investment in Vin had already started to pay off, and little would I know that would end up paying like 10, 20, 30x the initial investment over the next 2 years. But I went to Sydney. It was amazing. I come back from Sydney. The rest of the 2023, my first year working in an edtech startup, was really, really tough. I think I just didn't know a lot about the world. I was obviously not a professional. I had no skill sets of a professional. And there was just a lot of ways of thinking, ways of doing things that I just didn't know. And I remember that year I probably averaged like working 50 hours a week, which to me now doesn't sound like a lot, because I do way more than 50 hours a week now. But at the time for me, it was a lot. Like 50 hours a week was a lot. Actually, it was 50 hours of work plus uni. So maybe I was like working 60 hours if you include both, 60, 65. But at the time, that was a lot of work for me. And I was constantly making mistakes. I was constantly getting things wrong. I was constantly getting feedback from my mentors. And I remember on my 23rd birthday, in 2023, on my 19th birthday, I think it was. Yeah. On my 19th birthday, 2023, my friends come over. Like, I have this tradition. I don't like to do big things. I'm not probably like a very, very selective introvert myself personally. And I have a very close group of friends. And every single year since I was like 16, 17, these are my high school friends. They just come over. We sleep over at my house. Everybody drinks a little bit and we play poker, and that's it. And that's how I've been doing my birthdays for many, many years now. So all my friends come, and generally I'm pretty hard dude. I think growing up, I didn't really know how to express my emotions and regulate them effectively. So basically, apparently what happened is I was 19. I was going through a lot at the time, in terms of work, not working out. I had I felt like I had a massive chip on my shoulders, because I basically had told my parents after graduating with grades that would allow me to do med. Basically, I told my parents I'm not going to do medicine, and I had this chip on my shoulder. At least I felt that way, and I still do feel that way. That I had to make sure that I would put myself in a position that I could look in my parents eye to eye, and sort of tell them that I think I made the right decision by not doing med. But that's a story for another day. Anyway, 19th birthday, everybody comes in. I get absolutely hammered, and then I basically remember, my friends tell me, and I sort of vaguely remember, I started crying. And I just remember laying down in the backyard. It was quite cold. It was moist on the artificial grass. So I was all wet on my shirt and my shorts, whatever I was wearing. I remember being wet, and just laying down at 3 a.m. maybe, and my friends are around as well. Some of them are also laying down. I just remember crying. And things didn't really improve very soon after. Funnily enough, I think it was a month later, I would have a conversation with Justin himself, actually. And he just sort of broke it down to me that some of my mistakes had cost the business 20 grand over the last few weeks. And I remember when he told me that, I just remember like when that conversation ended, I just remember sitting at my desk with the laptop in front of me, thinking like, hey, maybe this is it. Like maybe I get fired. This was my only opportunity. I decided to not do med and enroll in uni. So my ATAR, which potentially could have been used to go back to med, like that wasn't an option. Like there weren't many options. Like I sort of had my back against the wall. And I remember at the time, like just telling myself, and shout out to Alex Hormozy and some of the people that I had been consuming some content on to develop some mindset frameworks. But I was just telling myself that like, this is what hard feels like when you don't feel like anything is going for you, when you feel like you're working hard to prove others wrong. In ways you're sort of working hard to prove your parents wrong. Because I think tides have changed a little bit now, but even back then, my parents they didn't really think this online shit that I was doing was going to work out. And yeah, fairly so, I get it. Like, the way they'd been raised, and generally this stuff is new and novel. And a lot of times when I even talk to people my age, they don't get it. So yeah, I have a lot of empathy for my parents. Shout out mum, shout out dad. They've been really supportive, like overall, incredibly supportive actually. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, 2023, incredibly tough. Then about October to November, the iCanStudy team, the entire team, I haven't been fired yet. I don't know, thank God. Like shout out to Justin, honestly, for not firing me at the time, and Michael, for really believing in me. But we go to India, and I'm basically like being the cameraman in this entire trip. We go to India, we go to like 5 different states. There's a lot of travel involved. And I'm the camera dude. I'm like recording all these workshops. And when before I joined this like ed tech to start doing all this stuff, I used to like see these lifestyles of people traveling around the world on planes, working. And I was like, damn, bro, that seems like such a great lifestyle. I want to be a part of it. Like, no, I didn't. Like by the end of that trip, I like never wanted to take a work trip again. That's because that's like how hard we went during that trip. It was basically, I think at the time I was waking up maybe 6, 7 a.m. so that we can get to wherever we need to get to by 8 a.m. And I was probably sleeping at like 10, 11, 12 sometimes p.m. because once I'd come home, I'd basically charge all the gear, I'd take the footage off, I'd back it up and all this sort of stuff. And it was just nonstop. We were basically, I think we visited like Mumbai, Bangalore, Manipur, somewhere. Like we visited so many places. But all I remember was planes, airports, hotels, hotel lobbies, planes, airports, hotels, like that was my entire trip. And it was really tough for me at the time. And I remember things got so bad at a point in time that I needed to like cry to regulate myself. But I was sharing like a room with one of my best friends. His name's Archer Newton. Funnily enough, he gave a TEDx Oxford talk yesterday. How crazy is that? Anyway, I waited for Archer to leave to do something, right? And I stayed back in my room, and I have this video clip. I'm not going to play it, but like it's just a video clip of me crying, looking at the camera and telling myself that it will be okay, because it didn't matter if the rest of the world did not have my back, because I knew that I had my own back. It's like is that an affirmation? Maybe it is. But yeah, I just remember it's funny because I never thought I'd show that video to anyone, but recently I showed it to a few of my close friends when I was telling them this exact story. But 2023, I come back from India. I also contracted this food poisoning, disease thing in India that made me lose 8 kgs of weight in about like a week, maybe a little bit longer than a week. So my last 5-6 days in India was basically just like bed rested, not able to sleep. It was honestly more horrible than COVID, which I had a few years ago. So I come back to Australia, absolutely like really weak. I remember I just like wanted to die on the flight. I was like, I feel so exhausted. I think death would be like more comforting. Anyway, I get to Australia, and I sort of had this like week span where I didn't really have to work because I was recovering and I was sick. And I went to my little brother's cricket game because he played on Fridays. And me and my mom were just walking around the ground. And I remember these conversations because like this was a pretty pivotal conversation in my journey. is I had this conversation with my mum where she sort of told me, she was like, hey, you've been trying this online shit for a year now and it's not working. You're doing education, which isn't considered a prestigious degree. Maybe like you gave it a go and you should try and get into med. Like it's like I've seen you, and oftentimes throughout the year 2023, like mentally, physically is okay, but like mentally it was so tough that on several occasions my mom sat me down and was like, hey, just like leave your job, quit your job. Basically she was like, we're middle class, like you don't have to like basically work yourself to death. Like we're going to be able to put food on the table. It's all good. And I just was like, nah, like that's not what it is. And I think at that day I sort of told mom that like, this is the whole thing. Like this is the exact point of their journey that most people will give up. And this is why like many people don't make it to where they want to make it and sort of let their dreams fade away. And I sort of gave her an example of her brother, my uncle, who came to Australia in 1999. And his story is pretty crazy, but I'll sort of sum it up from what I've heard. He came as an 18-year-old to Australia to become a pilot. And my grandparents took like a bunch of loans to be able to send him because it was quite expensive. And he basically got scammed. Like they failed him on an eye test that they didn't tell him about before. So he was my uncle who was 18, 19, stranded in like Australia in like, would have been early 2000, late like 1900s, maybe like 2001, maybe like around that time. So like you don't have FaceTime, you don't know, like basically you feel really isolated. And growing up I sort of had a little bit of anger and angst against my uncle, and now I just completely don't feel that way. And that's because I'm now his age, actually a little bit older, and I know how tough life is like for someone. And to be able to imagine an 18-year-old like my 18-year-old like uncle being in a country so far away, feeling like they had just been scammed of hundreds of thousands of dollars that their parents had taken loans for, that they knew that like that like money would not easily be able to be recovered. Like my grandma was telling him to come back to India because he got scammed, but he just sort of said no, because he wanted to make sure his parents' sacrifice was worth it. And it's very fundamentally my motivation for what I do as well. But my uncle, like 18-year-old, did like everything from what I've heard. Like he started in Crown, was like cleaning toilets and shit. Like he used to cry and stuff. And like over time, like he developed, and now he's a very successful like businessman and doing very well for himself. But I told my mum about my uncle's story that day at the Oval when she told me sort of to like call it quits. And in a way, almost like call it quits to sort of my like dreams in a way of really making it and becoming like a version of myself that I can feel proud of when I'm older. And I remember telling her, I was like, do you think he would have given up? Like my uncle would have given up when he was going through all that shit? And he didn't. And I was like, it did improve for him. Like things did turn around. And I just told my mum that I think eventually those things will turn around. And if they don't turn around, then at least I won't have the regret that I didn't give it enough time. Anyway, so that was 2023. It was real tough. And as I said, I've been working on this channel for 2 years. So that was the first year. 2024 was the best year of my life. And it's funny how quickly things can change. At the start of 2024, I sort of enrolled into Paddy Galloway's YouTube Accelerator. I've been working on Justin's channel and I'd managed to grow it from, I think, 160,000 subscribers to around 440,000 subscribers. And when I say 440,000 subscribers, that was like last year, like right now. Like it's Monday. It's Monday, the 3rd of Feb. Last year, we were at 440 subs. And I'd grown it to that amount just based off my YouTube knowledge. But I realized that I wanted to become the best in the world at YouTube. So I sort of enrolled into Paddy Galloway's program. And Paddy Galloway, if you don't know, is like the world's biggest YouTube strategist. You probably have heard of Mr. Beast, the dude that's like, I'll give you $1 million if you let me keep your bottle. Like those sorts of ideas. He does the Feastable chocolate bar. He's everywhere. Recently has a Prime show as well, the Beast Games. Paddy Galloway was a strategist for Mr. Beast and worked with him. And now Paddy Galloway works with some of the biggest creators in the world, like He also works with big brands like Red Bull. Like if you had a drink, their YouTube channel, Paddy Galloway helps them with the strategy. Philadelphia Eagles, which is an NFL team that is actually in the Super Bowl. And maybe the Super Bowl is already gone by the time you're watching this, but it's next week for me. They're one of our clients. And we have we have lots of other big name clients, and he's one of the best YouTube strategists in the world. So I enroll in his program as part of iCanStudy, to get better at YouTube. And over the course of 4 months, my life would completely change. All of his program, it's an 8-week program that happens live, and all of the live lessons were at like 3 a.m. And at the time, I remember me telling the iCanStudy team and Justin that, hey guys, like I've taken this program to upskill on YouTube, but the live lessons are like at 3 a.m. And none of them expected me like to attend them live, because you do get those recorded. But I was like, so by the way, guys, like they're at 3 a.m. So I'm going to be changing my sleep schedule, and I'll be waking up at like 2:55 a.m. every day. And everyone was like, what? Like, I remember Justin like clearly saying, he was like, yeah, man, I remember when I was young and willing to do those things. Now I need my sleep. And he's not even old. Anyway, I remember like him saying that. And over the next 8 weeks, I showed up to every single live lecture 3 times a week. I even went to all the bonus ones, and really just like absorbed it all in. And little did I know, by the end of the cohort, Paddy sort of sent me a message, because he'd sort of taken notice. Like every time I would join the call, it would be like dark in my room, and I'd be quite quiet if I ever asked a question. And he'd be like, hey man, like why is your room always dark? And I was like, oh, like because it's like 3:20 a.m. I don't want to wake up my parents with lights, and want to keep it low. And he was like, what the hell, 3 a.m. And I was like, yeah. And I just like didn't get it. Like I didn't get how that's all it took to stand out, is to be willing to wake up earlier at like 3 a.m. for like 2 months, like 3 to 4 nights a week. Like that's literally all it took. And that still like confuses me, because it's like anyone can literally do that. But yeah, people just don't. I don't know why. Anyway, at the end of the cohort, Paddy goes to me, sends me a message. He goes, hey Arnav, I actually like became really great friends with his lead strategist at the time, Chris. And Chris told Paddy about me, and Paddy was like, hey man, like, do you want to talk? And generally in the cohort and the way it worked, Paddy did a lot of the teaching, but we didn't have one-on-one access to Paddy. And we didn't really like we did have one-on-one access, but it was like in groups, like not in a private DM setting, because it was a group coaching program. So Paddy DMs me on like Discord, and he's like, hey man, like Chris told me about you. Do you want to have a chat? And I remember I was on the train going to Monash at the time, my university. And I was like, yeah, man, cool. Like, when do you want to chat? He's like, oh, like maybe 15 minutes. I was like, cool. And then 15 minutes later, he sent me a message. He was like, hey man, like Chris has told me all about you. Would love to hop on a call. And I was in the middle of my education lecture, in the tech building at Monash University. And as he said that, I like instantly just stood up with my laptop and just like left class. And it was funny because my table was like in the middle of a discussion. And like I was also engaged in the discussion, and as soon as that message happened, I just like stood up, didn't say anything to anyone. All my other shit was still there, and I just walked out the room, and I was just like walking around the like corridors with my laptop, talking to Paddy like this. Anyway, me and Paddy just had a chat, and then nothing would happen for about another month. By this time, like things have improved that iCanStudy a lot. I've had a lot of growth over the first few months as a professional, but also just as a YouTube strategist. Like the channel's starting to do a little bit better. We're starting to implement things are improving, and the growth rate is quite high. I think by the end of the cohort, the amount of growth that I had was actually quite a lot. I think at about that time, yeah. Anyway, I'm just trying to not say things that I don't want to say for privacy reasons. But around that time, nothing happened for about a month. I continued to go to uni, continued to do iCanStudy. I was still working like 40, 50 hours of work on top of uni at the time. But now like things were starting to click. I was, starting to get better. And it was starting to become quite obvious. Like my colleagues, my like mentors, they were pointing it out that, hey man, like I don't know what you're doing, but like whatever you're doing is like something is working. And it was funny because there's this like thing that my mentors do. It's called like hyper incubation, where they put someone through a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, so that so that they can grow. And they've only actually done that for Archer Newton, the dude who gave a TEDx talk. And they decided to do that for me in late 2023, and I just wasn't able to cope. I like basically cracked. That was the conversation that Justin had with me. Like, hey man, you just lost the business like $20,000. So at the start of 2024, I sort of like self-incubated myself through that pressure to be able to try to grow. And I sort of did that process. About a month later, Paddy sends me a message and he's like, hey man, do you want to, like, I have a task for you. He was like, hey, I have a task for you. Could you like clip some things and like give me some hooks and stuff, like some YouTube related stuff, which doesn't really matter. Regardless, the only thing I did was basically, the analogy I always like to give is, imagine like someone giving you a task. In this case, let's say if it's like, the task is write me 8 paragraphs, right? If you're an English teacher, write me 8 paragraphs. Paddy was like, hey Arnav, can you write me 8 paragraphs? I was like, yes, Paddy, no worries. But it's a YouTube related task. The paragraphs are an analogy for a YouTube related task. And he's like, when can you get these back to me? And I was like, hey, tomorrow, 24 hours, cool. And then Paddy, and then what I basically did is, he asked me for 8 paragraphs. I think I gave him 40, which is just to say I just like 5x'd the output that he had asked me while maintaining the quality that I wanted to hold myself at. And from the moment he messaged me, in the next 24 hours, 16 of those 24 hours, I was just like working on that task. Because I just sort of wanted to show Paddy that I was willing to go above and beyond what anybody else was reasonably, able to go. Paddy looks, so I sent that over to Paddy, just a little bit less than 24 hours later, and he takes a look and he sends me a message. And I remember it till this day. He was like, hey man, these are excellent. When can I hire you? Like, time. And yeah, that was pretty crazy. That was something I didn't expect. Now fast forward to my birthday, as a 20-year-old, things by that time had improved a lot. Paddy gave me the opportunity to work for him, and work under him and learn from him and work on some of the biggest YouTube channels in the world. And this had sort of been I guess like an opportunity I was looking for, because it allowed me to put university on hold. So I basically took a gap year. I sort of deferred at the end of that semester, and I remember my last exam, and finishing my last exam and literally taking a selfie of me, like sitting at that exam, like when it was done, and driving back home with my friend Vanch, just thinking that, hey, this might be the last exam that I ever take at university. Because hopefully all of this shit works out so well that it just doesn't make sense to go back to uni. Now, as a side note, like, I was studying like throughout this entire time. I just realized that tertiary education wasn't the educational pathway for me. So what I did is, like, I sort of realized that quite early, actually, when I was in year 11, year 12. So I decided to just go like straight into industry and learn from experts themselves. So I did the iCanStudy course. I like went through their stuff. I was learning about learning science and productivity and all these principles from 2022. And I sort of stopped that when I fully transitioned into my YouTube role sometime last year. So it was about like 3 years and 8 months. So you can almost say like a mini bachelor's degree. And I was qualified to work as like an academic coach, and a productivity coach, like on the like side. Like, this is all happening that I haven't just talked about because I don't think it's important. But I was doing all that stuff anyway. At my birthday, there's like in the middle of the year, that's the middle of the year, and it's semester break. And that was a semester break where I remember shit was going to kick off right after that. I was going to start Paddy. I was going to also do iCanStudy. And that was my life. And I remember that was the first time in 15 years, maybe more, 15 years that I wasn't in a traditional educational system, and I wasn't doing and being forced to do things that I didn't want to do. For the first time in my life, I had sort of constructed my life in a way that every single thing that I did allowed me to build the life that I wanted to build. And that was really crazy. And yeah, that was just quite a crazy feeling. Now over the last 8 months, I continue to work for Paddy. I continue to work in iCanStudy. And it was pretty crazy because by the time, when I was 18, in 2023 and crying, like while being wet outside, laying outside at 3 a.m., looking at the stars and just not able to regulate my emotions. Since then, to my 19th birthday, actually on the day before my 19th birthday, so I was still 18, the day before my 19th birthday, I had like 200%ed or like 2x'd, which is a 200% increase in my active income. And for me, I remember that was quite a meaningful milestone. It was a milestone that it's probably one of the first times when I like sort of put that, like, I guess you could put that check in front of my parents. They saw that was the first time they were like, wait, like there could be something here. And it sort of gave them a little bit of like self-assurance, because to them, they just saw that like me taking a gap year from uni means like all the stability is gone, everything is just gone. So I remember that was quite meaningful. And yeah, since then things have been going great. Justin is about to hit 1 million subscribers. I've learnt a lot. I've traveled and seen a little bit of the world, the tiniest bit of the world. I could barely call it the world. And I've just been working, grinding, investing in relationships, investing in growth, investing in myself, and just trying to become a better person. Yeah. I was a bit all over the place, but hey, it is what it is. And I sort of probably skipped lots and lots of detail for lots of things that happened, but that gives you sort of a snapshot into what the last 2 years have been for me. And by the way, like I forgot to mention, because Paddy's in America, since my birthday, like I had already been waking up at 4 a.m. like for the last like year and a half now, since I started working with Paddy. But when I started when I started training with Paddy, so now it's been like over a year that I've been waking up that early. But when I started with Paddy, like I still do. I wake up at 4. I start work at about 4:30 a.m. and I shift from about 4:30 a.m. to about 8:30 to 9 a.m. for Paddy Galloway, and then from 9 a.m. to about 5:30 p.m. I work at iCanStudy, and then I sort of give myself a few hours in the evening to go hit the gym. Oh yeah, and at the same time, been hitting the gym. Honestly, like not that much progress at the gym, low key. It's a second priority, but yeah, that's when I go to the gym, and then I sleep at about 8:30, and I sort of repeat, and have been doing that for the past 2 years. I also like trained Muay Thai for about 8-9 months, basically a year. That was awesome. That was fun. I stopped doing that because I was coming home with black eyes a few times, and my mom got real mad. So I stopped that. And I also realized that, hey, like I don't want CT and brain damage, because I want to use my brain in my 20s to sort of build a future that build a future that allows me to provide for my loved ones. Whew. I feel like I got a lot off my chest today. But yeah, that's how I feel. That is how I feel. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to post this on my main channel or my secret second channel, but if it's on my main channel, it means I have some balls, because it means family and friends are going to see it. And that's one of the reasons that I made a secret second channel. Because, yeah, I won't go into it, but yeah. So that has been the last 2 years for me. Fortunate to have the same friends throughout this entire time, and grown a lot closer with them. Shout out to my friends. I have like a few now. I have like 6-7 like good friends now. That's a lot. But yeah, that's about it. Cool.